This podcast has been brought to you by GM Moving, part of Greater Sports. We're here to help the people of Greater Manchester get moving and to improve lives through physical activity.
Hi, I'm Eve Holt, Studies Director at GM Moving, and for today's podcast I'll be speaking with Glynis, Debbie and Nick from Chorlton Bike Deliveries. So one of our goals at GM Moving is to develop more active and sustainable environments and communities through active design and infrastructure, encouraging more active travel, active workplaces and active lives. By 2040, the population of Greater Manchester is projected to be 3 million, with 600,000 more daily trips. Currently, 30% of journeys under 1 kilometre are currently made by car. This is simply a 5-minute bike ride. There's been lots of work going on over the last few years in Greater Manchester to try and help more people to walk or cycle and to reduce the number of short journeys currently driven. This includes the appointment of Chris Boardman and the establishment of the GM Mayor's Walking and Cycling Board and Fund, which has seen Greater Manchester step up efforts over the last 3 years to make walking and cycling a far more accessible choice for people, to include the development of the B network. The Made to Move report sets out an ambitious vision for cycling to double and then double again in Greater Manchester, with the aim of a 300% increase in cycling by 2028. This is part of a wider vision for 2040 to see 50% of all journeys being made in Greater Manchester being made by sustainable travel, whether that's public transport, walking or cycling. There is evidence from other city regions that suggests that a rapid growth in cycling is possible. So, for example, London is aiming for 15% modal share by 2041. That means 15% of all journeys would be made by bike. We saw in Seville an increase between 2006 and 2011 by 5.6% following the design of infrastructure. And Dublin saw an increase between 2006 and 2015 from 2.3% to 5.4%. So it can be done. The Bike Life report for 2019 from Sustrans provides lots of great data on who is cycling and how often and for what reasons, suggesting that 4% of residents currently travel by bike 5 or more days a week. This can be broken down in terms of differences in gender, ethnicity, disability, age, socioeconomic groups. It's definitely worth a read. COVID lockdown has seen more people walking and cycling to get around, and in a much greater diversity. Bike shops are selling out, so there are long waiting lists for mechanics. And we've been working with TFGM to see how we can support more people to safely get around by bike. This has included contributing to the purchase of 200 bikes loaned to key workers, the NHS, to help them safely get to work and to keep the wheels turning. We know that cycling and active travel generally is great for individual health, supporting people's physical, mental and emotional well-being. We also know the benefits it brings to the environment, to include lower carbon emissions and cleaner air. And we know that physical activity and sport generally can change lives and change communities. Chorlton Bike Deliveries are showing how pedal power can be a force for good in our communities, and looking forward to hearing what they've been up to. So can you give a quick introduction to yourself? I'll start with you, Debbie.
All right, hi. I'm Debbie, and I lived in Chorlton for the last 25 years and cycle everywhere as a way of getting around.
Okay, and to you, Nick.
Oh, hi. Yeah, so my name's Nick, and I can beat you, Debbie. So I've been in Chorlton now for, just quick calculation, about 40 years, which means I'm fast heading to retirement, and I've got time on my hands, and I care about living in a community.
And Glynis.
Hi, yeah. I've also been a Chorlton resident for a very long time, and I suppose I would see myself as being, having been a youth and community worker for a lot of my life, being a kind of community activist or social reformer, very much with cycling at the centre of that. So I have been involved in setting up women's cycling groups. I have been promoting cycling. I'm in the city since I came in 73, one way or another, campaigning really for the pleasures and the positives that cycling can offer us.
And for any listeners, Glynis also happens to be my mum, but has become quite a kind of well-known name. I was speaking to somebody just from Transport for Greater Manchester on on Friday who called you a legend, Glynis. Everybody knows you. So there you go. For anyone listening, it is Glynis Francis. And yes, you probably have seen her on a bike at some point over the last 20, 30, 40 odd years. So why did you set up Chiltern Bike Deliveries and what have you been doing? Starting with you, Glynis.
Yeah, this came out of a conversation with another woman in our team. We both connected, as we did with Nick and then with Debbie, through the setting up the Chiltern coronavirus response team. And we all had in common being a sort of a lead, a connector in our streets. And Claire and I were having a conversation about, well, okay, we've got all these WhatsApp groups sorted now, working really well together. What else do we need? And I think we both just said, oh, it'd be really nice if we could just ride our bikes, wouldn't it now, in this shutdown? If we could just deliver things for people. And to be honest, it was a fantasy. It was a bit of a, let's do that. And then I said, okay, well, why don't I just make a call? And basically I made a call, and within a few days, we had a cargo bike in my backyard. And went, okay, let's take it from here. So why Chiltern Bike Deliveries? Because actually, we wanted to ride our bikes, but we knew very well that there was actually a physical need to fill some gaps. Particularly to give people a sense of we can connect with people, we can connect with different agencies, we can connect with the traders, and just even cycling around Chiltern, we can connect with the other cyclists, all who are looking for a greener, carbon emission free town, really. So yeah, it started with a bit of a fancy and a dream, and it quickly locked us into the things that we've been working on really for the last 11 or 12 weeks really.
Okay, Nick, is there anything you'd want to add to that? And then Debbie.
Yeah, if I could, I think Glynis has said a lot about why we started it. For me, on a personal level, there's two things I'm passionate about. One is being part of a kinder and more connected community. And the other is about the environment. So in terms of kindness and connection, when all this kicked off and I just saw sort of a panic buying that was going on and shelves being emptied, I got scared, and then I started to think about the people who couldn't get out, the people who were older or more sort of isolated, and I thought, how terrible it must be for them. So that idea of doing something practical to help. And the other one, as I say, was the environment. My son had a bit of asthma when he was younger because of the pollution. My niece was in hospital as a baby for the same reason. It just felt to me encouraging people to not drive cars seemed a no-brainer. So that was a very personal answer to why I got involved.
And Debbie, you're meant to be on a gap year, aren't you, on the other side
I
of the
am.
world or something? So how have you ended up doing this instead?
So I took a career break from work. I've always worked full time to go off travelling, but obviously had to come back. And I think part of the reason why Chiltern Bike Deliveries went from fantasy to reality so very quickly is that for different reasons, we all had a huge amount of time on our hands. For me in particular. And I knew I wanted to volunteer with that time. I wanted to do something in the community, and I thought I would go insane if I couldn't cycle. So when the opportunity came to get involved with this, someone I think Glynis put something on Facebook, would anyone like to talk to Abby about bike deliveries in Chiltern? And I thought, I've no idea who Abby is, but yes, please. And this has really just brought together everything for me. Keeping active, keeping busy, contributing for all the reasons that Nick said. I'm a committed cyclist anyway, and very community minded. And this has just brought everything together for me and kept myself totally sane throughout this time.
So I remember when it was just the mere fantasy or dream, and at that point Glynis and I had a conversation, so this is very beginning of lockdown, with a woman called Zoe in Marple who was trying to do something similar there, and a woman called Beata in Hebden Bridge, and they were very much further on in their journey in doing e-cargo bike deliveries. So that was really to try and get some tips and share some learning at the very sort of start of this. A huge amount has happened since then, and a huge amount of miles have been travelled, very literally. So I think you just passed your 500 miles, was it last week? I saw on social media. So Debbie, can you share a bit about what sort of journeys, what sort of businesses have you been engaged with? What sort of stories in terms of who are the people that you are helping?
Well, we started off with it primarily to aim to support local traders. We very quickly got 3 or 4 local independent traders on board. One, amazingly, the cheesemonger, who actually managed to set up a business during this time, which was incredible. So our partnership with them has been very dear, I think, to both of us. And Adams, the greengrocers, and Ali's at the Edgerton Road South Post Office, all were still delivering for them. Those 3 ones were with us from the beginning. But also we linked up very quickly with local food banks and food charities. We've been working in partnership with Cracking Good Food since the outset in a number of different ways. And Glynis might want to fill in more about the relationship with Emmeline's Pantry and getting food from the co-ops and so on. So developing 2 wings really, the community side and the retailer side. So as well as that, we've been doing one-off projects. We helped deliver pink scrubs, supported the Pink Scrub project right at the beginning, which was fantastic to be able to contribute to another one-off projects that are going on within the community, just supporting neighbours really to shop for each other. It's just been fantastic.
Phenomenal. Any other highlights you'd want to add to that list, Nick and Glynis?
Debbie's covered that very well what we're doing, but what we've had to be is fleet of foot in terms of our thinking. Conditions, the environment's changed as we set off, so we began very much thinking about kindness and the charity arm, if you like, supporting the food banks and so on, and engaging with traders to help support them through this crisis. But as we're coming out of it now, we started to think about the future and building back better is the phrase, isn't it? And I just really don't want to build back to what went on before, which, back to normal, as it were. Because to me, that was pretty abnormal. So we need to be clear about our focus and purpose moving forward, I think. And are we a short-lived charity that's been really useful and helpful for a period of time for many, many people? We've done 500 miles, is that it? Or are we actually going to move forward and become a key part of our community?
It's clearly caught people's attention. So I know one of the first Facebook posts that you did with Ali's on Edgerton Road, and it had, 14 or 15,000 views very quickly. Really showed that there was something about it, wasn't it? That your dream also captured the attention of others for perhaps a whole mix of reasons. So is there anything else that you want to highlight? Come to you first, Glynis, in terms of some of those stories or examples and ways in which it's supported, the physical, emotional, mental well-being of people, particularly during this really challenging time of COVID.
Yeah, I think there's, when we did the article for, Manchester, kindness in Manchester, it was just a great moment to focus really on the fact that I think the kindness coming out of us, giving our time for free. Yes, we want to ride our bike, but making those kind of connections in a warm-hearted way, saying we don't need to be paid. This is a service that we're offering. I think giving out that kindness, we've had that given back to us, tenfold. And it has felt a bit like, growing the Chorlton family. Lots of people wanting to, really kind of connect. And I think, like Debbie's point about people with lots more time, maybe we're all kind of reflecting on, where the community we live in, how does it shape up, and there's some pretty kind of gruesome parts about it all and about this experience. But there's also a real warmth and kindness that's been exhibited here. And I think people just want a part of it. They want to be in it. They want to feel it. So actually being on a bicycle, I think is just a very warm way of seeing people in their shops, in, the retailers, and then connecting with people in their houses or connecting with the charities. There's nothing other than, pleasure at every point, really. So I think it's certainly, we've had this conversation, we've had these little chats about where would I be if I hadn't have had this, in these last 12 weeks. I would have really struggled, and I know this has been a significant contribution to my mental health, literally. Where can I put my energy? When I've been cross about the world, what can I do? I can go out and deliver some parcels. When I'm frustrated, I can look at the photographs we've collected and post them, and have yet more people like and connect and want to be a part of us. It's been a very positive outlet. Yeah.
Can I just add to that, Glynis? I didn't mention Tibetan Kitchen, and I really want to give a big shout out to them, actually, because with no funding or anything, they have had this whole project themselves where they have been offering free meals to residents who need it, either refer themselves or referred by somebody else, just directly to them. And they are so keen to give back into the community. They feel that they've been supported so much by the Whalley Range community in particular, and wanted to give back, and we're not interested in making money, and just be part of that. So it's been brilliant working with them and chatting to people on the doorstep when delivering to them. I mean, in fact, that mutual kindness you talk about, Glynis, turned itself around when last Thursday, when it was pouring with rain, one resident told them she didn't want their meal because she didn't want me to get wet delivering to them. I thought that was an unintended consequence of kindness, but just shows how much those little doorstep conversations have really meant to people.
And do you remember the cycle parade we did the other week? It was your birthday, Glenys, wasn't it?
It was.
We went through Chorlton. When you said smiles, I just remember looking around. Everybody was smiling at us as we went past with our bikes and balloons flying.
There's a real sense of spreading that kindness and that connectivity and that sort of web across a neighbourhood within the community, and these moments of joy. There's certainly all those photographs that I keep seeing on social media, whether it's the traders or it's the people that you're doing deliveries to, or it's all these different community groups and projects. There does seem to be a common theme of smiles all around, and certainly the streets, as you say there, Nick, as you cycled around the other weekend, there were smiles around, as you spread that joy. And describing there, so Glenys, you talk about how it's really helped you and your own well-being, and giving you a sense of purpose at a time that can otherwise feel very isolating, very difficult. And Debbie, you said it's really helped keep you sane as well. So there's a sense of this, building back better together, but also how we give back together and the benefits that brings to all of us. I know giving is one of the 5 ways to well-being, isn't it? In that real sense of how having that purpose and that connectivity and being able to give what you can when you can really helps so many of us as sort of these social creatures that we are, to really feel that we have that connectivity and we can contribute, which has felt so important over recent weeks. How about for you, Nick? What is it personally? You said what brought you to it, I guess. Is there anything that you would want to highlight in terms of what you then got out of Chorlton Bike Deliveries in recent weeks?
Oh gosh, I've got so much. I've got a real sense of comradeship. I'm not going to repeat what everybody said, because it's true how being useful makes you more resilient yourself. Doing good, it's good for your mental health. It's so obvious, and to feel it. So I'm having said I'm not going to repeat. I've just repeated it. So I won't labour the point. But,
it's probably repeating.
but I think the point I think I'd like to say is that it's a bigger picture stuff, because for me, as I get older, I want to live in a community which is kinder and which cares about its neighbours and which is more connected.
And as we talk about building back better, there's a definite focus there on thinking about what good community health and wealth building looks like, and this is definitely doing both, isn't it, in one, and how in doing so we're really addressing the very real stark inequalities that existed pre-COVID, have been widened during COVID, and have certainly been starkly revealed. So I think often the association and perception that sometimes people make around, who would be on an e-bike in the first place and who might be on the receiving end in somewhere like Chorlton, I think we can certainly possibly dispel some of the maybe perceptions that people may have. So, first of all, I think one of the things that's, really striking is, I got to know all of you well enough to know the ages of many of you, but definitely spans a good age range in terms of those of you who've volunteered, from a couple of members that I know were waiting to turn 18 eagerly before they could join the crew, through to Glynis, you celebrating, was it your 67th? What have I got that wrong now?
66.
66, as I said. Oh no! But we're all age proud. Birthday a couple of weeks ago. And then, the reality of, so all the, you talk about Tibetan Kitchen, got cracking good food, Emmeline's Pantry, reach out to the community I saw you working with today. These are all local community businesses and community and voluntary organisations that have absolutely stepped up, haven't they, in recent weeks, in providing absolutely key basics for people that need it within, a 5-mile radius. So, it's that level of need that we're seeing. It differs in different parts of the country, different parts of Greater Manchester, different parts of Manchester, but it's everywhere, isn't it? It's on everybody's street. There's somebody who's actually needed support in recent weeks. And I know that I've heard, I don't know if you've got any particular examples, but, of some of the specific thanks that have come, and how important this has been to some people over the last couple of months.
Yeah, just just on that note, really, I just wish I could, have a video camera attached to my head, and record the thanks and the appreciation and the smiles, from people, even just today delivering food for Unicorn. It's a real lesson that you cannot make assumption that because somebody looks fit that they're not struggling, because someone is young that they haven't got issues, because someone is old that they're not able to, that they're not being looked after. Any of those assumptions about just how people look, you have to, stop really, because people's individual personal circumstances have been kind of gobsmacking, really. And some of these people are people I know personally, and I had no idea of their circumstances, through COVID-19. There's a lot to learn there. I think there's a lot to learn about, the kind of interagencies. Different agencies have been kind of set up and they've been going for quite a long time, but we've uncovered an individual woman on the Merseybank estate cooking umpteen meals purely out of her own kitchen, purely out of her own resources. We've discovered how the food poverty in Chorlton, where people go, in Chorlton, I can't believe we've got food banks in Chorlton. Well, yes, we have. Actually, we've got quite a number of them. And I think I've learned so much more about food poverty and really the kind of under-counter world that's going to address that, and it doesn't look like it's going away anytime soon, really. So I'm very humbled by the cooperation between people. The allotment growers giving their excess rhubarb that gets to cracking good food, that gets turned into crumble, that then gets delivered by Chorlton bike deliveries, to all sorts of places. And I think no doubt there'll be some courgettes coming soon from the allotment growers, and I'm not sure how many courgette cakes we can turn around, but that it's Chorlton and we will, but for the wealth of Chorlton people, there is a lot of poverty and there's a lot of help needed, and it ain't going to go away soon. So I think we're in this for the long run now, I think we're in it for the longer term, both because of that kindness that's in us that we want to give back, and we, like Nick says, we want to live in a world where actually that's what dominates the situation. But also because, as has been said, the opportunity to actually offer people work, both supporting our local economy, but supporting possibly some younger people, as work is going to be difficult to find, and as we're going to go forward.
There's that lovely sense of generations working together, and that sense of reciprocity across the board, and skill sharing, and all these things that I feel like we've been talking about, wanting to further cultivate. And in some ways, COVID has given them the space and the need to happen of their own accord at an accelerated rate. So in terms of looking forward and broader ambitions for the future, and Gleis, you clearly said that this is now for the long haul. This isn't just a project just for the period of lockdown. Is there anything else in terms of what you'd like to take into the future and design into the future? I'm thinking so specifically at GM Moving, one of our aims is very much how we help develop more active and sustainable environments and communities through active design and infrastructure, and supporting people to design being active, into their work, into their lives, into the way that they travel and connect. You're doing all of that. So what do you think needs to happen next?
I mean, I think we've all probably got ideas around that, and we've actually put out a couple of surveys, Eve, at the moment. One to traders and one to residents, people living in Chorlton, about what they want to see developed. Because I think as a community resource, we need to belong to the community. That's the idea of a workers' co-op. I guess it belongs to the workers, but we need to whatever we do needs to resonate with citizens and community, and be useful to them. So the idea for one of the ideas going forward is Tesco's, I think, used it, didn't they? You shop, we drop. This idea that people can still go shopping, make their own choices, and still get out and be active, but actually carrying heavy stuff home is too much for them. They take a car, or they get a taxi, or they find some other way of getting it back, which has a cost to the environment. We're offering an alternative to that, which is good for all of us. Let's do it as a team. Let's do it together.
And so we've seen lots of people take to bike over the last 3 months. We know that bike shops have been selling out, and mechanics have certainly been kept busy. I know that lots of them are booked up for months to come, and it's been absolutely great seeing more people, and I'd say a much greater diversity of people on bikes of all shapes and sizes on our local streets. I enjoyed a ride on Bluebell on one of your eco cargo bikes, and it was absolutely exhilarating. It does take a bit of practice, doesn't it, to safely ride and to navigate corners. And as traffic, I guess, picks up over weeks, it'll become harder. So have you got any particular tips for anyone, I guess, who's listening in and wants to give an e-cargo bike or a bike and a trailer a go?
I mean, we've been very lucky in that, especially at the start when there was full lockdown, we had the whole roads to ourselves, so we had plenty of time to get used to holding the road, and there was just nothing. But I would encourage anyone that is confident on a normal bike to have a go. You can take your place on the road with much more assertiveness when you've got a carrier behind you. I think cars actually give you a wider berth because they see you as a bigger machine. So I think I don't think there's anything less safe about being on a cargo bike on the road than there is an ordinary bike. In fact, I think you can hold your own probably a bit more on it.
I agree, Debbie. I think it's safer, actually, because you are more visible, you are bigger. And I remember Glynis's advice to me when I first rode, which was to think of yourself as a car. Don't be embarrassed to get yourself out a bit more, and because you are a bit wider with a trailer on the back. But it's always felt very safe. And once you've done it once, it's second nature. It shouldn't put anybody off.
I mean, the more cyclists there are on the road, the safer it is, basically, and the more cars will learn and have to be more considerate, and the more space we can take up. I mean, the development of the pop-up lanes was just so exciting. Although the future doesn't look quite as exciting as it should be. But it's just amazing seeing all the families out on their bikes. I absolutely love it.
So hopefully people are seeing this as now part of the new norm, and looking to expect to see, you know, Bluebell or one of your trailers on the roads, and it stops being this sort of an exception to the rule. You know, how do we make it, as you say, kind of part of the norm? And then, you know, all of us adapt, don't we, then, to when you've got that greater diversity of people on bikes and different bikes going at different speeds. You know, what we've seen in other countries is that naturally creates a culture in which we're all far more considerate to each other. You know, we have rules and spaces that work for people, and you know, naturally we all slow down a little bit more, because you do, if you've got people with big trailers and, you know, things bobbing around, and you've got kids on bikes, and you've got people that are clearly new to cycling and wobbling. I think the way that people's expectation and care for each other shifts, which can only be a good thing. So is there anything else? I know that in Greater Manchester, the ambition before COVID, so this was set a couple of years ago, was to increase the number of people using bike to get around by 300% by 2028. And it does feel at the minute there's this opportunity to, you know, move quicker in terms of that shift, and a need to, as it's harder for people to safely use public transport. So is there anything else that, in terms of any particular, do you think people have you heard stories of people being inspired by seeing you all out on your cargo bikes? Do you think is it spreading?
Yeah.
You get is fantastic. I mean, I have I'm not on an e-bike, I've got a carrier on the back, which makes an almost quite a loud noise as I go along, so heads always turn, and all the kids just want to know what's in there. You know, everyone smiles, everyone's looking at you. I've not had anyone who just hasn't been curious in the most fantastic way of what it is that I'm doing, what's in there, how does that work then, is it ice cream? That was disappointment when obviously I lift up the lid of it and it's not ice cream, but
courgettes.
Yeah, it's just fantastic, the response that you get.
It's the same when you're on the e-bike. It's people turn their heads and look at you, and then when you get a conversation going, there's so much interest in it, and a few people have had a go on it, and so many people have said, "Can we volunteer to cycle for you?" Which I think is a measure in itself, isn't it? Which is great. I mean, it's fantastic. If we expand, we'll certainly be going back to those people.
So you've had people queuing up, haven't you, to be part of the crew?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So we look forward to seeing multiply.
It's I don't think I ever paid much attention to people with cargo bikes or trailers, to be honest. So now I'm going, oh yes, no, this is how much it costs, this is how it works. Oh, would you like to just have a closer look? I can show you this, I can show you that. So every time I've had anybody come close, I've said, oh, you can have a look, it's Bluebird. You know, that's wonderful. You can put children in the front, you can put your shopping, you can have your dog. And then people, asking me, and this father today was with his 4 children, and they were having a proper good look, and would you like this? And then I've spoken to another woman who said, oh yeah, no, I bought this one, I just borrowed it for a bit, and then I just fell in love with it. I can do all my shopping, I can go further afield with my 2 children. It's changed their view, it's changed us as a family's reach. We wouldn't have gone and had such adventures without an e-bike. So I feel like I'm a convert, and secretly I'm thinking, could I find this money to just own one of these myself now? Oh, I quite fancy this. Yeah. So I think the world is changing, and it's nice to know that like Salford University, are part of, are looking at how cargo bikes can, bring about that more sustainable change, really. I know other people have been working at that kind of policy and systems level. So we're not doing this on our own. There are forerunners here, and there are people that are setting up shop, and they anticipate their future income coming from the sale of cargo bikes and e-bikes. So we are part of the future here. It is on a bicycle.
And there is the option. So for people that are interested, you've hired Bluebell, haven't you? So the cargo bike, so people can hire them and try them out. You know, there is an expense to purchasing one. Hopefully in time they'll become more accessible, and hopefully in time we'll have infrastructure that will make it easy as well for people to store them, or to, you know, to use them as part of more sort of mainstream bike loans. But so Manchester Bike Hire, I guess, to give them a shout out, have hired you, Bluebell, for a period, for a few months.
Yeah.
And let's give another a second shout out as well for Transport for Greater Manchester, because they very generously loaned us the second e-bike which we're using. So thank you very much to the FGM.
So for anyone who's listening and would like to get involved, or would like to find out more, or is interested in doing something similar in their neighbourhood, how do they get in touch? And we'll add details to the podcast blurb. But what's the best way for them to get in touch with Chiltern Bike Deliveries?
Yeah, I think, you know, definitely send us an email expressing your interest. As has been said, a number of people would love to just volunteer with us as a rider, and, you know, we're being extremely measured about the number of riders that we want to have, and not set them up for things that we can't then deliver. But I think there, as we move forward and hopefully, you know, take the line of being a workers' cooperative, there's more than just riding a bicycle. We will need to expand the business, and the whole process of, you know, of offering a quality service, you know, will need to be worked out. I think the other thing is that already, you know, people have said, oh, we'd like to set this up in our neighbourhood. I think the neighbourhoodness, you know, the kind of grown out of our community, and yes, grown out during COVID, which means, as Debbie had said, you know, we've had more time than maybe most of us would have had normally, has been a real asset. And my advice would be, you know, grow it in your community. You know, what we've been able to do in this very short space of time is because, you know, Nick has networks, Debbie has networks, I have networks, and they've all come together to support us, you know, in different ways. It's priceless, and I don't think you can grow that overnight. You need to tap into what's already there and work with, you know, those community-based networks.
Yeah, there's a saying, isn't there, that change moves at the pace of trust, and it does feel that those conversations, those relationships, that care, that community has been key in enabling this very rapid, I guess, change and success of Chiltern Bike Deliveries. That's only because of those existing relationships and the care for people in place that you all have, and that connectivity there. Any final comments before we finish?
I'd just like to say, I mean, it's about trust and kindness in the community, but also as a small team, there's been 5 of us, 5 to 6 of us, that have worked together. I only knew one. I only knew Glynis beforehand. So we've just worked seamlessly as a team, sharing values, sharing the way we work. It's been an absolute privilege to work with such amazing people. And that has been a real highlight for me. Real proper collaborative can-do working. An absolute treat.
Well, that sounds like a perfect note to finish on, and say thank you very much for your time today. I'm sure it'll inspire others out there who are thinking about, you know, giving back, being kind, connecting, getting on a bike, keeping the wheels turning. So thank you for all you're doing. I look forward to hearing and following and watching and seeing those smiles and that kindness continue to grow.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, why not share it or tell a friend about it? And if you've got feedback or ideas for future episodes, please get in touch with our team at Greater Sport using the links that you'll find on our podcast page.